Second part. "Did you get them?" Dr. Allen asked. In lieu of a reply, Sheriff Crooks removed a thick wad of papers from the chest pocket of his coat and held them out. "Which one?" he said, teasing Dr. Allen by casually moving the mass of papers away from the older man as he reached for them with his blotchy fingertips. Suddenly, there was a sharp crack. The sheriff's eyes shifted from the papers he just smacked into the palm of his other hand, and looked up at the hospital director. Kritz's eyes were ablaze, kindled by grief and an intense hatred. The director took his gaze impassively. His iron will ruthlessly deflected the sheriff's arrows of fiery sentiment. An incredibly powerful sense of duty was supporting him. "You know what happened to Clements?" the director asked. They were in Dr. Allen's private office. While flames fed by petroleum and a light that was a complex arrangement of lenses kept the dark at bay, the two of them were like darkness in human form. The sheriff gave no reply. Folding his hands on the table, Dr. Allen said, "He's in serious condition. Broken ribs punctured both his lungs. Even after he heals, he's never going to be very spry again. Makes you wonder if he wouldn't have been better off dead. If nothing else, he was a fair bit more adventuresome than you." "You think he knew what's going on here?" the sheriff asked in a hoarse voice. "He doesn't seem to be aware of the situation. But from here on out, there'll be a lot more like him. We won't be able to say this is a peaceful village anymore." The sheriff once again smacked the bundle of papers into the palm of his hand. With the pile of papers now tossed down before the director's stormy eyes, Allen picked them up and began reading them. He pored over the pages with a prudent gaze, as if he were studying a patient's charts. Alexis Piper. At least 7 counts of murder, uses an electric whip. Belle Coldite? 17 counts, trained in Demon Kempo. Maddox Ho. 12 counts of murder, uses a knife. I don't think any of them could stand up to the hunter. Dr. Allen mused. The Bio brothers. Eyes shining brightly, the director went on scanning through the rest of the papers. While he was doing so, the sheriff seated himself in a chair by the wall and gazed out at the darkness massing beyond the windows, never moving a muscle. An hour later, the hospital director came to a decision, saying, "These guys are it." "Can you get them?" the sheriff asked. "I'll manage something. It may take some time, but time isn't a problem." "You mean because he can't leave?" "Precisely. Killing that hunter's not gonna be easy," Sheriff Crooks stated. "Not even in this world." "I realize that. That's precisely why Sybil called him here. But now that he's in here, there has to be some way he can be killed. Just as we can die, so can he." "Well, I saw him a little while ago, and there wasn't a scratch on him." "That's just because our preparations were inadequate," said Dr. Allen. "But I have continued to make improvements to the machine. This world and everything in it is on our side, for all the good it'll do us." The sheriff's words were accompanied by a metallic squeak. the sound of a trigger being pulled tight. The hospital director gazed disdainfully at the muzzle of the missile gun that Krutz leveled at him. Traded up for something to use against a hunter who can chop down a laser beam, did you? You'd certainly be better off using that against him. But you really can't do that either. You'd still have to worry about him coming back to life. Have you thought about blasting someone else with that thing? His tone was inflammatory. You talking about Sybil? Sheriff Krutz said, spitting the words. At the very least, it would settle matters here. Though I don't know exactly how everything would wind up, the director said, leaning back in his chair. I was born in this village. It was a good village. Ever since I was a little boy, I thought there couldn't possibly be a more wonderful world anywhere. Every child eventually gets the urge to leave their birthplace. But the thought never even occurred to me. It was my sincerest wish to live my whole life here, to grow old and die in this village. Me too. But, the elderly physician began, his eyes colored as never before by weariness and despair. I never would have guessed the whole thing was a sham. Don't start that! The sheriff moaned. The finger he had around the trigger was white from the strain. I believe I showed you proof of that not long ago. This world and everything in it is just Sybil's. Dr. Allen may have actually caught himself at the very end. The instant the ultra-compact missile flew from the 20mm wide barrel, it reached maximum velocity, slamming into the elderly physician's chest. At a speed of 1,500 miles per hour before exploding. The detonation was the work of an impact fuse. A half-ounce of explosive gel blew open the hospital director's chest and his left shoulder, killing him instantaneously. The Bio Brothers, the sheriff muttered as he caught the foul stench of burning flesh and fat. Getting to his feet, he looked down at Dr. Allen with a touch of sadness in his eyes. I was born here in the village too, and swore to the people that I'd be their sheriff. And I can't be a party to murder, no matter what the reason. Holstering the weapon at his waist, the sheriff grabbed the list of criminals and walked out of the room. There was no sign of anyone in the hall. Normally, he'd pass a few nurses at this hour. Come to mention it, there wasn't a smell that was unique to this time either. The aroma of supper. Sheriff Krutz went down to the basement. In front of the room where Sybil slept, he came to a halt briefly. He tried to think about what he was doing, but couldn't get his thoughts to come together. He went in. The machine, the feeble darkness, and Sybil were all sleeping. There ought to be a few nurses around, the sheriff thought. It was like an empty hospital. He stared at Sybil's face, propped up on the pillow like a pale moonflower. Her serene breathing served to lessen, at least a bit, the burden of the darkness crushing down on his heart. Is it true, Sybil? He called out to her. Are all our memories just made-up stories? Was all that stuff about you and me just a dream? Is me being here now a dream? Hell, are the things I'm thinking now not even my own will? Is it really all just some dream you're having. Or something the other you dreams. The sheriff slowly brushed his hand against the missile gun on his hip. He hesitated when his fingertips met the grip, but after repeating this gesture a number of times, he finally grabbed the grip firmly and drew the weapon, pointing the barrel at Sybil. All part of a single action. That the barrel of the weapon shook was completely natural. And then, a pale hand gently came to rest on the sheriff's. Eileen! Opened wide with astonishment, Sheriff Cripps's eyes reflected the quietly smiling image of his wife. But how? When did you get here? Please stop already, Eileen said. She sounded so sad. For a second, the sheriff got the impression that for the longest time, he hadn't seen his wife wearing any other expression but sadness. It's already beginning, Eileen said. No matter what you do, it won't help anything. The Sybil we have here isn't the real Sybil, you know. No, she is. I know she is. No, you don't. You don't know anything at all. Not even about yourself. Probably not even who you love. But you're the one That's a lie, Eileen said with a thin smile as she shook her head. You're just trying to love me. But even that's just because Sybil makes you do it. And the same goes for me hating you. Don't you see? I'm very happy now. Of course, that's due to Sybil's control, too. No, Sheriff Cripps said, shaking his head. The sweat that had seeped from him, while he was unaware of it, now did a sparkling dance through the air. That's not true. I'm me. I love you with all my heart. And you hate me with every inch of your body. Eileen was speechless. Something began to glisten in her eyes as they watched her husband. And the sheriff was pierced by a near indescribable fear. And that fear spoke to him. What exactly are you? I'm the sheriff. My name is Critz Bogan. Age 48. Weight 157 pounds. Height 6 feet 3 inches. My favorite food is... What are you? Why are you here? How did you come to exist? I was born. I came from my mother's womb. Where is your mother? What do you mean by mother? The woman who gave birth to me. Her grave's in the cemetery on the outskirts of the village. Kurtz, darling, his wife called to him. Give up already. Let's just accept our fate. That's the best thing we can do. You've got to be kidding me, the sheriff moaned. His hair was standing on end. But this phenomenon was more the result of anger than fear. I don't care what my fate may be. If it's something someone else would assign me, then I'll be damned if I'm gonna submit to it. I'm me. I'll live by my own thoughts. Yes, that's it. It's all about living, Eileen whispered gently. Even if we are just part of some other Sybil's dream, we still have a right to live. This whole world does. Please, you've got to help me with this. Sheriff Crooks shut his eyes. His wife's request overflowed with the sincerest passion. But even that wasn't her own doing. He recalled what the hospital director had revealed to him just before he'd gone back to the jail to visit Dee. This village, this world, even we ourselves are a dream Sybil has. All of this will vanish like a popped bubble if she awakens even once. And that's what we all are. And that includes the Sybil who sleeps in our world too. When Crooks still refused to believe, Dr. Allen manipulated the machine connected to Sybil's head to give substance to her image so the lawman might see. The image was a copy of the girl as she made herself appear in her dreams. A copy that disappeared less than 2 seconds later. But even after that, the sheriff was a tangle of doubts, standing still as a statue. And now... "It's a lie," he groaned. "Please help me with this," Eileen begged him. "So we can continue to exist." "And do what? What's the point? Suppose we are just a dream of the other Sybil." The words of the hospital director came back to him. Since we are dreams, in order to continue to exist, we must see to it Sybil continues to dream. That hunter came to disturb everything. "How do you know that?" Crooks had asked. "Because..." "Sybil!" The sheriff screamed. The frantic cry gave him the determination to stick to what he believed. His thumb cocked the hammer of the missile gun. "Don't!" Eileen cried. "What are you afraid of? The director said this Sybil is just part of a dream created by the other Sybil. Just like us. We'll disappear too. If Sybil wants to wake up, then that's fine," said the sheriff. "How can you do this?" "You said all our emotions are just something someone else gave us, right? In that case, maybe I really don't love Sybil at all," Sheriff Crooks said. "If this Sybil is just part of the dream, sleeping and dreaming within this dream, then, if I kill her, the other Sybil might wake up." "Darling." Taking her cry as his cue, the sheriff pulled the trigger. Bright red flames enveloped the bed. The sheriff stared at the missile gun like an idiot. Sybil was sleeping peacefully. Not a trace remained of the flames now. If we're lucky, perhaps this world has broken off from Sybil's dreams, and now has a will of its own. The words of Dr. Allen came back into his mind once more. The world doesn't want to be destroyed. That's why it put me to work. Sheriff Crooks lowered his weapon. The frosty beauty of the hunter drifted to the forefront of his mind, and a strange peacefulness came over him. Dee alone, he knew, was a separate entity. The missile gun sank slowly. "Darling." Not answering his wife's call, the sheriff calmly walked toward the door. "Where are you going?" "I'm gonna leave the village." "How?" Eileen asked. "I don't know. But I'll go around and around 1,000 times if need be. Maybe I'll die in the process." Eiling said nothing. The white door pinched the form of the sheriff from view.
My darling.
Eiling fell to her knees, sobbing. Up till this very day, she'd lived with the knowledge that her husband's heart would never let go of Sybil. She'd always believed the passing years would eventually sweep away the anger and sadness she felt watching her husband go off to see the girl. 30 years had passed before she finally realized she was used to it. But a resolution was coming. Now. It's an awful dream, isn't it? The voice of the hospital director echoed over her shoulder.
But my husband can't be helped. Wouldn't you agree?
Eileen closed her eyes and nodded. A tear left her cheek, falling to strike her knee. Second part, end.